No, I'm saying since 1920, no one has been able to go to the top.
But your mom went to the top.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. In this reality, as of now, no one has ever been able to go to the top since 1920.
Hey, all you warriors and warlocks. Welcome back to your favorite podcast, That Would Be Rad. A podcast that majors in 80s and 90s nostalgia, comic culture, all things paranormal, and minors in retro video games, tabletop RPGs, pre-internet mysteries, and raising our kids to be half as cool as we were back in the 80s. We are your hosts, Woody Brown
and Tyler Bence.
What is going on, bro?
Well, first off, I got to say, as I'm just going to get right into it. As a fan, huge fan of Denzel Washington and his Equalizer movies, which, in my opinion, and again, this is subjective, this is just my opinion, I would go so far to say that the two Equalizer films may be the best action movies ever made.
I mean, they're certainly some of the best, for sure.
I think they're incredible. I think Denzel's amazing. But I see today that there's a new Equalizer show with Queen Latifah.
Queen Latifah, huh?
Yeah, she's like...
Maybe they just watched that Taxi Cab show and they just thought, she's the one. She's the one for this.
She's the one.
That's interesting. I guess Denzel probably wouldn't do the show.
No.
Now, in the movies, well, I don't want to get down that road, man. This is not an episode about Equalizer and how much we love those movies. I was just about to ask you, like, whatever happened to his wife?
You motherfuckers will be playing basketball in Pelican Bay when I get finished with you.
Okay. Today, though, I'm excited, and here's the best part. Like, I bet that you will not, even though we've kind of talked about both these movies before we started recording, I kind of bet you're going to be a little bit surprised about my overall take on everything.
Okay.
So today, we're going to talk about two 80s fantasy movies that, I mean, in my mind, everybody has probably seen before, and that's part of the reason why we chose them to be in our fantasy face-off. I'm kind of excited about this battle. So today we're talking about The Sword and the Sorcerer and Red Sonja.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I got to say, after watching these two movies, a couple things. One, I have to admit here that I had actually only kind of seen The Sword and the Sorcerer whenever I was a kid.
Yep.
I remember certain aspects of it, but I never really watched it all the way through.
Well, I'll go ahead and say that the only thing I remember was the sword.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. If you've never seen Sword and the Sorcerer, first off, man, both of these movies have just insane cover art.
Oh, yeah. That's probably the best part.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of these movies that we've picked all have really, really cool cover art. And as a kid, again, going back through the video store, the aisles, and just like picking movies almost based solely on the cover art was just a huge, huge thing, man.
Oh, I mean, 100%. Like that was like, the big selling point, because a lot of these, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have, more than likely as a kid, you didn't have you weren't subscribed to Entertainment Weekly or, if that was even around then. And so you were kind of just judging everything on the cover, which is pretty amazing. I mean, especially if they got those killer painters back in the day. I mean, that was probably the main thing that I remember about Crawl is that cover.
I mean, gosh, sometimes I feel like, should we have just done a battle just based on the covers alone? But in terms of the movie itself, this one, The Sword and the Sorcerer, was released in 1982. Here's what's interesting. It was actually released by the same exact studio as Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, wow.
And they both came out, I think, the same year. And it was almost like, that studio was like, ooh, man, fantasy movies are kind of hot right now. We've got two scripts on our desk. One's going to have major star, more budget. And the other, not so much, but people will still go to see it,
And we'll have a great cover.
Yeah, just a killer cover, man. One of the things just out of the gate that I noticed about this movie, and I think you did too, man, is like the visual effects actually were pretty cool, man. There's this scene in the beginning where they like this evil king, who I'll get to him in just a second, is basically summoning some sort of like demon sorcerer or something in order to kind of have an advantage on and kind of help him defeat this rival kingdom, you know? And that whole scene when they summon the demon and everything, the effects I thought were pretty freaking good for 1982, man. I mean, there's this like weird, kind of scary wall of like faces and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, just for the time and for, you know, the movie, I thought the effects were pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit, I watched this. It's kind of impossible to find online. I mean, you can buy it, but didn't really want to do that. So you can watch the full-length film on YouTube, but the quality is right around 240, and the movie is already kind of grainy, you know, because even though you said 82, I have a sneaking suspicion that it was probably filmed a good bit earlier.
Yeah.
Just from the film stock, it just kind of, I don't know, there's something about it that like kind of places it probably late 70s instead of 80s. I could be totally wrong, but that's just my opinion. But it was really difficult to see anything that was going on. But it did look really cool. Yeah. And it would have totally freaked me out as a kid.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. You know, it's rated R, so it wouldn't have been one of those that I accidentally let my kids watch. But,
man, rated R, huh?
I don't know, man. I feel like some of these movies we ended up probably as kids maybe seeing like on TV or something, because I do remember it. I just don't remember any of that stuff. I mean, the demon does this weird thing where he like, the king is like saying something about like, you know, prove to me your power or some crazy thing like that. And the freaking demon like looks over to this witch that was the one that conjured him up and like force pulls her freaking guts out. And it's just like, you know, and it's just like, whoa, man, this got intense right in the first like 3 or 4 minutes, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool. Oh, man, I thought this was hilarious. I wrote this down. So like the rival king, you know, who's I guess like, he ends up being the hero's like dad or something. Yeah. He looks like straight off the set of Teen Wolf. Like he looks like Teen Wolf's dad. Whenever Teen Wolf's dad like wolfs out.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
You know, and I thought, wow, interesting look for a king.
Which, man, I love Teen Wolf's dad.
Gosh,
he just
the best.
He looks like he would have been such a great dad to have, I feel like.
Well, he's kind of, I always thought it was hilarious too. Like, you know, that scene, and I know we just went straight to Teen Wolf here, but you know that scene whenever like Scott, the Teen Wolf, is like transforming for the first time. He's like locked up in his bathroom. He's like,
Scott? Can I come in?
No, Dad. No, I'm doing something in here. All set.
You may be surprised. Whatever it is, son, you can tell me. I'll understand.
No, Dad. No, not this time.
Scott Howard, this is your father speaking. Now open this door right this minute.
Okay, Dad. You asked for it.
dude, I don't know why it's just so hilarious to me, but like,
yeah, me too.
That first look of Teen Wolf's dad, just like,
and he's already changed.
Yeah, and he's like,
What's the matter, Scott?
oh god, dude, so good.
Yeah, man, I want to go back and watch that movie now.
Mm-hmm. It's so good, dude.
I haven't seen it in a while.
So another thing about this movie, dude, is there's almost no one that you would recognize in terms of acting. Now, I think there's like some actors and actresses that were kind of maybe more famous like generations before, but for me as a kid in the 80s and even now, I really didn't recognize any except for one guy who I think everybody that grew up in the 80s would recognize as like the guy that was the bad guy in so much.
Yeah.
His name's Richard Lynch, and he was like the bad guy in Airwolf,
yep.
Invasion USA with Chuck Norris.
Mm.
You know, just always that guy. And so he's the main bad guy here. Aside from that, everybody else is just no idea. I mean, I did dig the kind of the love interest gal, you know, like in the movie. Other than that, man, I mean,
the prince's sister, was that right? Or
no, I don't know. Poor.
I literally couldn't even tell who she was because it was so blurry.
It's so weird, man. Here's the thing about this movie. Before we get on and kind of compare it and or kind of dive a little bit deeper into Red Sonja, it followed that same sort of thing that we talked about with early episodes of Columbo, that 70s and early 80s just really drawn out storytelling. You know, it was kind of entertaining. I know as a kid, the three-bladed sword was pretty cool. It can like shoot two of the blades, and then it just leaves like the middle blade. There's also like a dagger like hidden in the handle. Not sure when you would need that, but just in case. I mean, it's, you know, pretty cool. But it's funny, dude. I read Roger Ebert's review, and I got to say, like, I kind of agree with him here. And I thought it was a pretty cool review, actually, because it ends pretty cool. So this is just some of it. And this was written in January of 1982. And he says, when the movie was over, I really wasn't much moved. The Sword and the Sorcerer is so dominated by special effects, its settings and location, that it doesn't care much about character. It trots in people on screen, gives them names and labels, and then puts them through paces, but that's not enough. If a filmmaker would just take the time to provide human quirks for his characters, to give them nice little turns of speech and identities that we could tell apart and care about, this kind of movie could be really fun. He says, actually, one filmmaker has done exactly that. Only his swords and sorcerers were set in the future. And that is George Lucas with the Star Wars movies. Nice, right?
That director.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying, imagine being that director and reading that review.
Yeah, no. Ouch, man. Very ouch. I mean, I kind of agree in that by the end of the movie, and I sat through the whole thing. At the end of the movie, I couldn't tell you really beyond just sort of like bullet points what it was about and what comes next or any of the characters' names or anything.
Yeah.
So, you know, so far, it's not really going to be hard to beat, you know?
I will say, I feel like this really sort of suffered a lot of the same missteps as Kroll did, where, you know, exactly like he said, there wasn't like a lot of, I don't know, it's almost like there wasn't a lot of like personality put into these characters. You know, it's kind of like checking off your boxes of like, okay, this is like the sort of brutish kind of like warrior character. This is sort of the magician. This is the bad guy. This is like, and it was kind of like, okay, these are on the screen, and then let's now introduce another kind of, you know, like exactly what he said with like the no sort of quirks, which oddly enough, I think is one thing that Red Sonja totally got.
Yeah, agreed.
You know?
Yeah, you can't really relate to the characters because you don't know what they're, like, who cares, you know? They're just like, I'm this guy. I have a three-bladed sword.
Right.
You know? And
I didn't even understand the deal with the sword. I mean, was he, was it like spring-loaded?
Yeah, I don't know. They never really showed him, like, reloading it, but they did show, like, those things just, like, shooting off and, like,
oh, yeah.
You know, it's like some cool, like, mix between James Bond and, you know, a fantasy movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Which, as a kid, boy, that would have, I mean, much like Kroll, and which I loved as a kid. I mean, this movie, like I said, I vaguely remember the sword thing, but I know, like, you know, young adolescent Tyler would have lost his mind over that sword.
Oh, yeah, man, for sure. I mean, really, I think looking back, it's like, I feel like we should have put this movie against Kroll, and then it could have been like a battle of which weapon was the coolest. And I mean, I think no matter what, Kroll loses because they only uses it in the last, like, 5 seconds before the credits roll.
Yeah.
Even though I agree with Ebert's review of this movie, I think it's pretty hilarious to, dude, listen to his review, just a couple of seconds of his review for Red Sonja, okay?
Okay.
With an adventure film set not in the future, but in the past.
It's set in the past, all right. That moment in movie history between the introduction of horseback riding and the obsolescence of the brass brassiere, known as sword and sorcery. Our first movie is named Red Sonja, and this one gets the prize against some very tough competition as the single silliest sword and sorcery movie since The Black Shield of Falworth. This one is so inept there are times when it's actually fun, especially when the actors struggle through dialogue that sounds
So anyway, I just thought, he kind of just thought it was just an absolute silly mess.
I mean,
yeah. I mean, if I'm being honest, it kind of is.
yeah, but I thought it was pretty cool though.
I did too, man.
I mean, I feel like what he's saying about the dialogue, like I get it, but at the same time, it's kind of right on par with the dialogue of with Conan, and like it's the same kind of very sort of stilted dialogue, but at the same time, they're kind of I think the point was they're supposed to be sort of these sort of barbarians or like warriors, so I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah, me too. And as a kid, I remember loving this movie for sure. I mean, my brother and I would watch this quite often. So it came out in 1985, and one of the things that I noticed rewatching it that I completely missed as a kid was that just initial title scroll. And so it starts off with, her name was Red Sonja. She lived in a savage world in an age of violence, a fierce warrior with flaming red hair. In the Hyborian kingdom, her quest for justice and vengeance became a legend. This is how the legend began. So that's another thing about The Sword and the Sorcerer that got on my nerves, is there was just this constant narration over the whole movie. Right. Whereas like in this movie, they just used a quick title scroll, and then boom, you dive straight into this story.
Well, I will say though, I think they did have a little bit of an advantage as far as that, because this would have been the third of the Conan films, right?
It's Conan the Barbarian and then Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah, and then Red Sonja. So they kind of, just as far as that goes, they already had like a little bit of a world kind of fleshed out.
Well, and it's interesting too. So another thing about this movie that just kind of like takes it to the next level in comparison to The Sword and the Sorcerer is it's just like the cast is just packed in this movie. Like you've got Brigitte Nielsen, who plays Red Sonja, obviously.
Yep.
You've got Arnold Schwarzenegger as Calidor. That's right, folks.
Yep.
Not Conan. Which, dude, growing up, I swear to goodness, never knew that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was so confused watching this movie, because I'm like, is what's happening here? And that was a weird choice too. Like,
well, and I kind of found out about that because I thought, wait, what?
Yeah.
But why? I was so confused. Basically, it was initially supposed to be a cameo appearance that he was kind of contractually obligated to do.
Right.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. And essentially right before this movie came out, he had done the other Conan movies, but he also did the Terminator, the first one.
Yeah.
So he was just like big, like he's just exploding at this point. And basically it was supposed to be Conan because originally Red Sonja appeared in 1973. She debuted in Marvel's Conan the Barbarian number 23.
Yep.
So she is a character from the Conan universe, and that's why I was like so perplexed, man.
Yeah.
Like, why is this guy's name Calidor?
Yeah.
So apparently it's a rights issue, which is really kind of a boring end to the story. Conan was owned by Universal, and Red Sonja was a CBS Fox picture. So
basically a Marvel Fox
exactly
kind of situation that we're dealing with now.
Yep, exactly, man.
Interesting. I mean, that's cool to know, because the whole time I'm like, what is happening? I just like did not get it.
Yeah.
But that makes perfect sense. Hey, Woody, should we
take a quick break?
After these messages, we'll be right back.
America's future can be determined by our dreams and our visions.
It was very intense, bright light.
For over 200 years, there have been reports of giant man-like creatures.
From another dimension, another world, I don't know.
The most intriguing mystery on the North American continent.
You're listening to That Would Be Rad.
I know you still haven't seen Dune, which you need to get on that.
I know.
But this guy named Sandal Bergman, he's the one that played like the little kid's sort of like right-hand man with the big giant bone,
Yeah, who was
that he used.
Awesome. And also, if you remember my idea that I swung on you like 2 weeks ago for a character in D&D, it was literally that. As soon as I seen it, I was like, oh my gosh, I had this exact same idea.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And he was
those
cool.
Of
you that haven't seen this movie in a long time or ever at all, essentially this little kid who we'll talk about in just a second has sort of a guardian that is kind of watching over him.
Mm-hmm. Like a bodyguard kind of thing?
Like a bodyguard, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because this kid's like a prince or something.
Mm-hmm.
And this big bodyguard dude uses this giant animal bone. I mean, I don't know, like a mammoth leg or something.
Yeah.
As his like weapon of choice whenever he's fighting. And so it's pretty cool to see. But that guy, the actor, Sandal Bergman, he was in Dune. He plays one of the Harkonnen guys. I don't know. But that's where I recognize him from.
Mm-hmm.
Ernie Reyes Jr. is the one who plays the prince.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, I just thought this was like a really cool, there's a couple cool things that they do to kind of infuse Red Sonja with like Asian fighting culture and stuff.
That was the biggest thing that I gathered from this. And I'd kind of forgotten that they do that a little bit with Conan too, is like, it's this sort of Chinese meets Mongolian kind of thing where they, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, you think of sort of barbarian and you think, you know, blonde hair, blue eyes and sort of Scandinavian or Viking-ish, not, you know, obviously not Vikings, but like you think of that when you think of these sort of barbarians. And so to have like these sort of Asian flavor in there, I thought that was really, really cool.
So yeah, I mean, there's this whole sequence in the beginning where Red Sonja is training. She basically trains, all of her sword training is with this like Asian master, sword master, who costume-wise kind of looks like he just came straight off the set of like Power Rangers, right?
Yeah.
Like he just got this huge fluffy hair. I mean, he looks like one of those Power Ranger bad guys, but without the mask on.
Well, and I got to say the bad guy, the guy, not the girl, with like the headdress thing on, also looks like the girl Rita from Power Rangers.
Oh yeah,
kind of the same vibe.
So Ernie Reyes Jr. was just one of those kids whenever I was growing up that, you know, I just thought was the coolest.
Yeah,
man. My dad was super into martial arts and stuff, so he kind of knew of him, and I just thought he was just such a cool. His character's so funny in this movie because he's kind of bratty. You know?
Oh yeah,
and
he plays it really well too.
Oh yeah, and watching him do all these like actual karate moves and stuff was just so awesome.
Yeah,
but you know, he was also in, obviously, you see his face in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. But he also was, you know, in one of the suits, I think, for the first Ninja Turtles. I could be wrong on that, but I'm relatively positive.
I feel like he was Donatello.
Maybe. I felt like that, too.
But what else was he in? Wasn't he in, what else was he in? Because he was kind of a big deal throughout like, the 80s and 90s.
Because it does seem like more than just those two movies.
Yeah. It was cool to see him, you know, that proficient in, like, karate at such a young age, too.
I really don't think he was in much, man.
How do we know of him so much then?
Well, he was in, that movie, or it was like he was in the show Sidekicks. He was in, he was in Red Sonja. Then, like, he played a character in an episode of Highway to Heaven.
And
he was in MacGyver for one episode. I mean, literally, dude, nothing until Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
Really?
Oh, and then Surf Ninjas later in the 90s.
Oh, that was great, yeah.
Yes, man. But after that, dude, that's it.
Yeah, do you remember, so there were Surf Ninjas and then there were Three Ninjas?
Oh, yeah,
which was amazing.
So good,
I loved it as a kid, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, so there's a couple of familiar faces in this movie, too. I don't know if you kind of noticed or whatever, but there's a couple actors that you're like, oh, man, I know this person from somewhere. You mentioned him just a second ago, like the other bad guy who kind of looks like Rita or whatever is Ronald. Oh God,
Ronald Dahl. He wrote James and the Giant Peach.
No, I can't even read my own writing here, which is awesome. Oh, Ronald Lacey, and everyone would recognize him from being the guy in Raiders of the Lost Ark who gets his face melted off.
Oh, okay.
Remember, he's that bad guy.
Yep.
But another guy that's in there is a guy named Pat Roach. Now, I kind of recognized him sort of in the movie, but truthfully, as I was looking at, you know, the actor list on IMDb for Red Sonja, his main picture, it's like, oh my gosh, I know this guy. So he's the guy. Do you remember in Raiders of the Lost Ark when Indiana Jones is like boxing this big, humongous, freaking bald Nazi airplane mechanic with a big old mustache?
Yep.
Him, dude. That's who it is, right? And so this guy, as I kind of dived into his filmography, it's insane the stuff that this guy's been in. He was in Conan the Barbarian. He was in Willow. He was in all of the Indiana Jones movies, the original trilogy anyway.
Wow.
He was in Clash of the Titans, so we'll see him again whenever we watch that movie. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and then sadly he died in 2004. But this guy's career, man, as just like kind of like a rough and tumble stunty kind of actor, you know, kind of spanned. I mean, think about all the work that he got, you know?
Oh yeah, big time.
So cool, man. Oh, dude. I wrote this down as like the best because, you know, when we first started talking about this movie, we were talking about the dialogue. And, you know, whenever I was a kid, I thought it was funny then. It's even more funny now. But anytime Arnold Schwarzenegger yells anything, it's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
So did you ever notice when he's like, hold on? I think he says like, hold on, Sonja. Or like, watch out.
Yeah! Well done, Sonia!
Oh, my God, dude. It's so funny.
I wonder if, I don't know. I mean, I wonder if he, well, I mean, he was huge back then, though. So,
yeah, man.
Well, and I will say, like, there is something, you know, especially with these, you know, the 80s fantasy face-off. I mean, you know, anytime you have, like, a warrior, you know, character, I mean, there is nothing better than huge Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, he was so ripped and so huge that, like, you know, that's exactly what you wanted.
Yeah, man. He'll forever be the best Conan that there ever was, you know?
Yeah. Although I still haven't seen the new one, but you said it wasn't that great, right?
I mean, I don't know, man.
And is it Momoa?
Yeah. Who's cool, but boy, just his acting is just terrible, man.
Yeah, he kind of goes in and out.
Yeah.
With me, too.
I mean, I just hate to do it again. But Aquaman, bro. My gosh. Just terrible. And, you know, I think many episodes ago when we were talking about the first Conan, I mean, this is like, I don't even think we had determined we wanted to do a face-off yet. I think I misspoke and said that in the first one, they, like, dubbed over his voice. Dude, I think I was thinking of, like, one of the Hercules movies.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's whenever he's, like, in New York or whatever.
Yeah, Hercules in New York or something. I think that's what it's called, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's the one where they dubbed his voiceover.
Yeah, now that
one.
Hold
on, Sonja.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. There's just like another funny thing about Arnold Schwarzenegger is like in every action sequence, like whatever sounds he's making, he's always like,
yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
It's he like always sounds like the scene in Total Recall when he's like dying in Mars or whatever. His mask is off.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's an interesting actor. That I mean, honestly, they couldn't have picked a better actor for Terminator, though. You know, he didn't really have much dialogue. He's just this, you know, presence that's huge, and you know they put glasses on him, so not a ton of acting, just kind of being menacing.
Man, both those movies, God, I love them so much.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, T2 was
just humongous.
I mean, it changed my life.
Me too, dude.
I saw it several times in the theater.
Just everything about it was just amazing.
Yeah.
So good, dude.
I mean, I wanted to be Eddie Furlong.
Oh yeah, I grew my hair out long.
I still do.
Well,
not now.
Not if you've seen him recently.
Not
I
current
think,
Eddie Furlong.
Boy,
yeah.
Not sure what happened there. Poor guy.
Yeah.
All that stuff being said, you know, there's moments of Red Sonja that just didn't feel. It just felt kind of like forced, like any kind of romantic sort of interaction between Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Red Sonja. Didn't really. It just was kind of silly or whatever. Oh gosh, what about the scene when they're in that like water and there's like this weird metal dragonfish thing?
I am so glad you said this because it kind of made me think, you know, especially since we were talking about like the Asian thing. I'm wondering if like the producer or the showrunner or like, I mean, it did have like a real sort of Asian vibe. I mean, especially, I mean, it literally was straight up like Godzilla.
Yeah.
Like swimming Godzilla. And even like the sounds, it would do these weird like little Godzilla like these, I don't know how to explain it, but like there were times in the movie that totally felt like it was, you know, a Japanese film or even Chinese technically.
Yeah, man. I didn't even think about that. That's interesting. Anyway, the effects were kind of cheesy is the reason why I brought it up.
Yeah.
And, I kind of took away some points there. But if I have to kind of pick which one moves on to the next round,
easy.
I got it. Hold on. Let's say it both at the same time. I'm going to count to 3. We're going to say who we think the winner is on 3. Now, let's just review. Let's recap.
Mm-hmm.
Sword and the Sorcerer, really cool visual effects. Definitely better than the stupid dragon monster thing that we talked about just now.
Debatable.
No really famous actors other than the guy from Airwolf or whatever. Not sure what happened to that guy in the previous years, but whatever.
The burn victim guy.
Yeah.
Ew.
Gosh, man,
Poor guy.
Canceled.
Canceled.
But at least he had a big career. Still acting. Okay, and then we've got Red Sonja.
Yep.
It's star-studded. It's got good action. It's got some humor. It's at times pretty silly.
Yeah! Well done, Sonia!
Strong girl mullet.
Oh, dude, super strong girl mullet.
Strong.
And I gotta say, man, whenever I was a kid, I had a crush on her, man.
Me too.
It worked.
Me too.
I don't know whenever I first watched this movie if I had also seen her already in the movie Cobra starring Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, yeah.
But that was also one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, me too. God, have you seen the new meme where it's like, and I totally forgot about this in the movie, but like there's a scene where he's like eating cereal and he's like, as he's eating cereal, he has like a cigarette and like sunglasses on and like his like gun holster like around his arms. That's pretty amazing.
That's amazing, man. I have not seen that, but I will look for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on 3, who's moving on to the next round? 1, 2, 3. Red
Crawl.
Sonja. God,
What do you think, man, Red Sonja, 100%.
Red Sonja?
Yeah, it just felt sort of, a few years later, and again, I go back to, I think that Sword and the Sorcerer was probably filmed late 70s. So it had a few years extra, kind of to grow.
The production quality was not.
One thing that I did notice, and this is sort of a through line with all these movies that we've watched so far, is all of these action scenes were so drawn out, and there's never any music behind them. Have you noticed that?
In what?
Like, it's just silence. Like, if you go back to like the water scene, which when it first came up, I was like, oh, this is clearly like their version of the trash compactor, trash chute in Star Wars. Because they're trapped in the water and the water's rising, and there's no music in the background. There's no sound design. I mean, it's all just like these funny sort of special effect, noises.
Man, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, and I think that's why these movies feel so, drawn out, which, kind of, a little bit of it is sort of charming, but, as we move closer into the 90s, you start seeing, growth as far as that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Red Sonja, for me, 100%.
Well, and like you said, I mean, I think it being a little bit, later when it came out, I just feel like it had a bigger budget probably, had to have all those actors and actresses and stuff.
One thing I gotta say about Red Sonja is literally the way it ended was so bizarre to me.
Oh yeah, it just kind of stops, right?
Well, it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Brigitte Nielsen, they're, finally they like fall in love, and I mean, you'll see if you watch the movie, but at the end, it's like, or nearing the end, it's like, okay, well, I'll only be with a man who can beat me in battle, which, canceled nowadays because whatever. But it's like they just fight, and they're just like, until they just get super tired, and then that's it. And then the very end of the movie, it's like, I guess they're making out, and then like you just see the little Asian prince and his bodyguard. They're just like, come on, let's go. Let's leave them be. And then it just ends.
It's so weird.
It was super weird.
I don't know. It did end kind of like they're like, I mean, I don't know what into we should do.
Right, exactly.
Let's just have these guys ride off in the sunset,
Cool, man. Well, anything else you've been into the last couple weeks? Music or?
Well, I mean, I finished. I read all 3 of the books in the Icewind Dale trilogy.
Can't wait to borrow those pups.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm kind of excited. I picked up some new Chuck Norris movies on VHS, and it's funny you talked about this movie being like 240 in terms of the resolution. I'm pretty sure that's still HD in comparison to a lot of the VHS tapes that I have. So
yeah,
I'm pretty used to the softened resolution or whatever. I'm kind of excited to kind of watch more of these fantasy movies. I mean, some of them, like, I got to be honest, like The Sword and the Sorcerer was kind of hard to kind of trudge through a little bit. And so some of the ones
cool.
It was still cool, yeah, for sure. But I'm like, it's easier to kind of like tune out a little bit whenever the movies don't really have that much substance. So I'm kind of excited to, watch like Lady Hawk and The Dark Crystal and Neverending Story Legend, for example.
Yeah.
Rewatch those and see kind of.
Although as excited as I am to see Legend, I feel like it's another one that visually is amazing, but like plot wise, I don't totally remember anything other than like the intro and like in my brain, I just see it as like a music video. I don't really remember like there being like a sort of solidified like plot. So I'm pretty excited to
I don't
go
remember back. I don't think I remember anything about it other than like
Tim.
There's like a.
Curry.
I think there's like a. God no, I forgot about that. He plays the demon or whatever, right?
I mean, amazing practical effects.
That was him.
Amazing design.
I mean, I just remember there's a unicorn or something.
Yeah.
And then like
they break the horn off or something.
Something, dude. And then like
I remember
Tom Cruise's character's name is Jack, which kind of an interesting name for a fantasy character, but go for it.
But I remember, and he was like trapped under the surface of the water or something.
Oh.
Is that the movie?
I don't know. That sounds more like. Do you remember that old Ewoks movie?
Oh, dude, I love.
And then they were trapped under like a pond or something.
Oh yeah, dude. One thing about the Ewoks movie that will never not be cool is the number one, like the little kids' costumes were like
the headbands,
so
dude.
80s.
So cool.
Yeah, and the little girl with the frizzy hair and like the headband was amazing. And like didn't they have like a little lighter / lightsaber thing?
I don't know, man. It's been so long since I've seen that movie.
Yeah, me too. I used to love it though.
Yeah, me too. I was obsessed, man. I mean, I was obsessed with anything Star Wars.
So actually, man, this actually connects to that. The spider sequence on Ewoks. Do you remember that? Like the huge webs and the big spider? Straight up almost identical to Krull.
Oh, really?
Remember when the one dude goes in to meet the spider girl?
What's weird is, I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure they use didn't they use the Lucas lot for filming Krull?
It could be.
I think, man.
I mean, James Horner,
sure.
The composer, boy, ripped
he
off.
He loves to borrow.
Oh my God. I mean, there were things in Krull, like if you haven't seen it, go watch it. And the whole time you'll just be like, I'm pretty sure this is John Williams. Well, it's not. It's James Horner, and he straight up stole stuff from Star Wars.
He likes to steal from himself, too.
Yeah, that's right.
There's this hilarious YouTube video that you need to, after you listen to this episode, go onto YouTube, search James Horner, and just ripping himself off. And there's just time after time. It's like a 30-minute video of all these times where he basically uses the same exact sequence of notes for things happening. It's hilarious.
And I'm a little sympathetic to that because you and I are songwriters. We played in bands for years, and coming up with for me coming up with little guitar parts or little flourishy kind of stuff. And so I get it. There's a little bit of that you will always naturally lean into, and inevitably that is what becomes your style, as an artist. That it sounds like you're copying yourself, but after a while of doing that,
but this is the equivalent of him playing the same guitar solo in every song.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting to. But not only that, I mean, on top of him, copying himself, the stuff that he's playing to begin with is such a ripoff of John Williams. So
And you know what's interesting about John Williams is like you can listen to some of his stuff and you're like, oh man. So he has like, he doesn't rip himself off, but he has certain theme.
Oh yeah.
He got like, he has like a certain, I hate to say the word theme because that's almost different. He's got like a certain vibe, I'll say, for different movies. Like he's got like the, what I call like the winter movie vibe, which is like, if you go back and listen to the Home Alone soundtrack. And then the Harry Potter soundtrack.
Which is beautiful. Like,
oh my God, it's the best.
And honestly, that vibe actually kind of has a little bit of like a little Danny Elfman vibe. It almost sounds like Elfman kind of pulled from, which I don't know. I guess Elfman maybe was kind of doing that before. So maybe it's the other way around.
No.
No? I mean, I'm saying as far as Williams doing like the winter Home Alone thing, because that would have been later on, and Batman would have came out before that.
Maybe.
So
maybe.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. He's so sort of iconic though that even my 6-year-old daughter Amelia, you know, will hear something and she'll immediately be like, "Oh, is that John Williams?" And it's like,
mine too.
That's how you know you made it.
Yes, dude. That's good parenting.
Yeah. I actually saw him perform at the White House.
Nice.
Years ago for like an Independence Day thing. He sort of rewrote this like national anthem meets Star Spangled Banner, kind of like
like a cool like medley.
Kind of like a medley, yeah. But it was really cool. I really was disappointed though that he didn't, you know, at least go into the Superman theme.
Oh yeah, no kidding, dude.
But it was still cool. I mean, you know,
have you heard about this thing that they do every now and then? I mean, obviously not last year, but at the Atlanta Symphony, I think, will do this where they play John Williams live while you can watch like Harry Potter or Star Wars. Dude.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. There's also another one that I've missed every single time, but it's, and of course I can't think of the composer for this stuff, but they also do like a Final Fantasy one. It's all live and it's all like the music throughout Final Fantasy. Yeah, I'm just not hooked up into that world, you know, so I never know when that stuff comes around, but that'd be really cool.
For sure, man. That'd be so much fun to go like take the kids and watch like the first Harry Potter or, you know, if they did it with Star Wars or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that I want to do before spring, by the way, is I am straight up gonna get some sort of backyard film situation there where, you know, like having a big projector, humongous
already
screen.
Got it, dude.
Well, I mean, like a huge screen and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And
like a scrim, I guess.
I don't know. It's just going to be enormous.
Like
and then it's going to be like kind of facing, imagine you go into my backyard, you're looking out towards the woods. That's where the screen's going to be. And then doing just like Star Wars marathons out there, man.
Man, I love it.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome.
10,000 bug bites later.
Yeah! Well done, Sonja!
Well, just, you know.
No, I'm all in, man. One thing that I need to say, I just saw last night, I happened to run across a picture of one of our biggest and oldest fans and family members of the show, Clay. He posted a picture of him and his whole family wearing our t-shirt.
Man, amazing.
And it blew me away. It made me so happy. Just amazing.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, this is, I think, episode 25, right?
Yep, I think
and so we're only 25 episodes in. This is something that we started from scratch, out of nowhere, and to have listeners that love our show, people that want to support us, and that come back every week. I mean, I know that we say it all the time, but we literally mean it. It just means the world to us.
It does. I mean, it's hard to sort of express like the, I don't know, it just checks those boxes. The same kind of thing, you know, back in the band days when we were touring and stuff, you know, somebody would see a show and they would be so sort of impressed or so kind of impacted that they felt, oh, well, I got to get something to like represent that. I got to get a shirt or I got to get some merch stuff, a hat or whatever. And it's just such a good feeling, and we're so thankful and so grateful for you guys.
Yeah, It's amazing. You guys are amazing. Thank you to everyone that comes back week after week and tells their friends and their family to listen to us. It, man, like we said, it just means the world to us.
Yeah, it really does. Well, you got anything else, man?
No, I mean, don't let Clay and his family and all the other listeners who have bought our T-shirts and hats and all that stuff be the only ones. Don't be jealous. Just, you know, you can go and visit our merchandise shop at shop.spreadshirt.com/that would be rad. And you can get, I mean, just so many things. You want to drink coffee out of a mug that says be rad? I mean, make a statement.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you can do that. So you can support us too by going there, interact with us on our Instagram page at That Would Be Rad. It's a great way to kind of show us some of the things that you guys are into, talk about things that you want us to cover on the show. And frankly, we check it a lot more frequently than we do our email. So that is the best way to, you know, to get a hold of us.
Yeah, and if you have anything else, if you have comments or more long form stuff, feel free to DM us or visit our, you know, shoot us an email at thatwouldberadpod@gmail.com. Again, week after week, we appreciate everything you guys do. We love this sort of growing family of the That Would Be Rad podcast, and to everyone that is here for us, we appreciate you. We love you. So as always,
be rad.
That's the way it goes.
Clouds in a time where I just needed some sunshine. You were already dead, for you became a ghost. You always said I